So that we can just, kick this off, we'll just have a quick round of intros so that we can know who's on the panel and what they do, and then we can just deep dive into the conversation. So kindly, Cynthia.
I'll keep mine brief. Cynthia, co-founder and CEO at Quara. Maybe I'll go a bit more into personal background. I have an engineering background, and I've always loved building things from scratch, and have worked in energy and finance before moving purely to technology.
Thank you. Henry Aber. I head ICT at Future Saccos. Future Saccos is a 36-year-old organization running through technology. We have members across the world, 26 countries to be precise, and all of them are being served by the technology that is being built at Future. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Kamochu. I'm the co-founder and the lead pacesetter at Meliora Technologies. Meliora is a technology company or a software engineering company with a mission to equip. I had the guy from Safaricom copy our mission to equip the next generation of software engineers so that we can do more here. Yes.
Interesting. Kariki, are you there? Maybe you can do a quick intro before we start.
Yes, my name is Robert Karaoke. I work for Mombasa Port Sacco as the CIO. Mombasa Port Sacco started in 1966 as a membership of 9,917 members, an asset base of 7.3 billion. We paid 20% on dividend and 12.5 on the rebates. Basically, I'm here to contribute to the discussion that is very interesting.
Thank you. So we've got a nice blend of panelists today because we do have Cynthia, who's, for lack of a better description, on the outside, as what you'd call, I don't like using the word vendors because you're moving into collaboration and partnerships. So I do not like using the word vendors. It sounds like a procurement term. And in technology, we talk about partnerships. So, and we've got, Henry, who's in the Sacco industry, and Robert as well, who are actually practitioners on a day-to-day basis. So they will tell us from the innings within the Sacco industry. And Kamochu is here and he builds stuff. So we'll have sort of a blend of, conversations around collaboration, readiness within the Sacco industry, but as well as we need to also look into the regulatory environment because at the end of the day, I met the CBK governor the other day, and one of the things that he mentioned is ignorance is no defense. You cannot claim that you did not know when you're breaking the rules of the game. So I think we'll touch a little bit on that so we can see where the Sacco sit in terms of regulation. So as a start, and this goes now to Henry and Karaoke, please tell us what's the Sacco readiness as it were today. So we had a brilliant presentation from Cynthia in terms of looking at how Saccos can transform into neobanks. But what is the tech readiness, really?
I would say now Saccos are ready. Actually, they're working the technology space as opposed to yesteryears when Saccos would not really like to venture into technology because of the fears that were there. Now, Saccos are into building technology that members are demanding. The yesterday member is not the same member today because people working from home, you can imagine he would not want to walk to a Sacco to get a loan of 15,000 or 1 million. They now want to do it from their home. And if the Sacco is not doing that, then they walked into a bank. So actually, Saccos are into this space. And as I said, if I give an example of Sacco, we are members across the world, 26 countries, and they're being served from the comfort of their country, of their home. So you can imagine the technology that is being built around there. And without moving into that space, then you'll be a forgotten Sacco, if I would put it like that.
Okay, and what would you sort of give us a view of how you think in terms of tech capacity, tech readiness within Saccos as opposed to traditional, commercial banking? Where would you think the Sacco space is at right now?
I would say the Saccos are working in that space, and there are big giant Saccos who are ahead of the rest, and the rest of the Saccos who are behind are following up with that speed. Because as I put it, if you don't invest in technology, trust me, you're not going to do business with any current generation. You realize the generation that we have now, you look at the attendees today, everyone has their phone. I'm sure they are chatting or probably trying to transact and trying to pay someone out there. So it's because of this technology. So the Saccos are getting ready. Some are already there. Some are already coming up. And the hindrance would be the cost of this technology. But with time, people have acknowledged that technology is where everything is going. And those huge budgets that my friend Tony said IT was a cost center back then, now it's not. It's an investment, actually. And it's running the business, if I would put it like that.
Thank you. Kariuki, if I could get you to come in here. So 26 years in the business. So how is your Sacco getting ready for this?
Thank you, Moni. I just want to emphasize something my colleague Abea said, that long gone is the belief that Saccos are trailing banks in innovation, in technology, and all these other things. I actually believe the Saccos are at a vantage place where they are going to overtake the banks, because the decision-making period now is shorter for Saccos. Unlike banks, you know, if you belong to a bank that has got an origin in a country that is not, for example, Kenya, then, you know, that process takes quite a while for approvals to come in. But what I think we need to look at is what are the factors that we need to take care as we embrace this NeoBanking. Because as we see, there are people, there are systems or the technology, and then there is the process. So if we break down those things, we can look at what are the gaps we have in tech readiness on the systems. One of them is a lot of vendors or a lot of partners who develop the systems are bringing systems that are vulnerable, that are not secure, that are exposing the Saccos to hacking, to fraud. Two, the employees that we have with the Sacco, are we just looking for people we are underpaying because we can't afford professionals, and we put them in places where they make decisions that are supposed to bring the Sacco to the level where they can do better than what the banks are doing? Three, the processes. Why do we have to have 5 steps to a loan process when you can minimize it to 2 and the end result is the same? So to me, these are the things we need to look at as we embrace the NeoBanking. And the advantages of moving that direction are more than staying where we currently are.
Thank you. Cynthia, there's been an accusation here that you're bringing systems that are vulnerable. I'm not quite sure that is fair, because having been a partner to a commercial bank for so many years, I would take that with a pinch of salt. But more importantly, what role does collaboration play in terms of accelerating this transformation for Saccos? How do you look at yourself as an enabler for this transformation?
Yeah, one of the strongest benefits, actually competitive advantage, that startups have is they start off with less resources, but also less historical knowledge. So they can ask questions about a process that has happened, you know, that has existed many years before. That possibility to ask those first principle questions is what yields completely different approaches on just the same, on the same thing. And so we and fintechs tend to take and should take an approach of co-development, co-building. Spend the time with your user, spend the time with the Sacco. First of all, understand what the Sacco's strengths are. Saccos know their members. They might not have yet, for example, if it's the granularity of personalization, but they know their members. There's a reason why people are joining that particular Sacco. They're able to provide incredible results, great dividends or great high interest on savings, low interest on loans. So recognize and understand the Sacco has its strengths, and you are there to augment those strengths, not replace and not interfere. And second is the co-development, co-building. And this is in the literal sense. Sit with every different person you're trying to solve a problem for and understand currently how are you doing things. What is working about what you do now? What is not working? That way, fintechs don't have to assume that they know better or that they can magically sort of innovate on behalf of the Sacco. Now, that's not the way software or vendors have worked in the past. In the past, development happens in an isolation, many years building a product, and then you go and then you have to sell it. You have to push it to the market. Whereas if you are working together with the Sacco, the sense of ownership is so deep that at some point, the product belongs more to the Sacco. You're just carrying the name of it. But we have seen more and more times the Saccos feeling complete ownership over the innovation process because they're included at every step. It's not always easy because it wasn't the way it was done before. I'll just give an example. At some point, we were asking a lot of questions. Why are things done like this? How would you do it? What is the best approach for this? And one Sacco asked us, you're asking a lot of questions about, let's say, the loan process. Is it because you don't know how a loan works? And we realized as well we have to balance that, not necessarily seeming that we have no clue what's going on, but that we're inviting the Sacco to build with us because they'd never been asked before what was important to them. So now on our side, the learning was introduce that process first, share that we will be asking a lot. It will seem like we don't know, but the way we are asking those questions is to get your input and then make good on the promise. Ensure that at every point in the product development, you have the feedback from the Sacco. Then there's no buy-in needed because they built it with you.
When you talk about collaboration, I hear you talking about what the Sacco wants. And that's important. But I ask myself, who is actually asking what does a customer want? Because there's a partner here, there's a Sacco here, where does a customer come in? And I would like you to quickly respond to that and how you tackle that as a partner. And then after that, we'll now pull in, Kamocho, and he can take us through how we can be able to build products that actually sort of control lifestyle and customer expectations. So kindly just give us a view on the customer.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what someone said before. There are no customers in the Sacco sector, there are members. And the member comes first. So I want to keep it very brief. The origin story of Quora started at the member. We were trying to solve a solution for coffee farmers. And then as it evolved, we found a particularly, a good mix of an opportunity and the skill we had to launch what we eventually launched. But the motivation was inspired by the individual who joins a group of people to meet their financial goals. So everything that we designed, it's not that the real customer, the client is a Sacco in the sense of a contractual relationship. But because Saccos are owned by the members, there's a natural correction that if you at least tune into it, you avoid offering to the Sacco something that doesn't work for the member. Naturally, the Sacco acts in the interest of the member. So if you negotiate just with the Sacco, let's say, in principle, that's fine. But we took it a step further because we came from the perspective of solving for the members' issues. And that has influenced how our core banking is. Our core banking exists to support the member in their goals, and which, as a result, helps helps the Sacco achieve its own goals.
So, Kamochi, picking up from what Cynthia is talking about, how do you then leverage things like customer experience? And I know you've been building stuff for a very long time, still doing it. How does a Sacco industry leverage on good customer experience, good product design to ensure that they actually be able to leapfrog, to your standard commercial banks and even the fintech space?
Thank you very much, Muni. And I will ask for forgiveness from a guy called Peter who told us that we should not use the word customer. These are members. So, and as I think one of the things that I can reference is we are talking about Saccos becoming the neobanks or the digital banks. And you can't talk about that without referencing the names that we had. I know Mr. Mushiri mentioned of Ali, we've heard about of NeoBanking in Brazil and all that. What are the things that we can borrow from them? And one of the things that I can note is these are tech companies. So we've been discussing here about technology not being a second stage service or a supporting business function, but becoming the business. And I think my brother from Liquid Telecom mentioned that they changed, sorry, not Liquid Telecom, Liquid Intelligence. They moved from a telecoms company to a technology company. Safaricom is also in the transition from a telco to technology company, and there is a lot of effort. Even for you guys, you have to do that. And for my sister here, Cynthia, myself, and even the vendors where I can see Tom from Presta, we have to create a layer where these guys can actually add services on top of the infrastructure and the platforms that we create. Because at the end of the day, let us be honest with one another. When I'm talking to you guys and there is a change that is based on what the customer needs, what happens is we classify it as a change request. We claim to be agile, but we know the procurement process is not agile. So we end up sacrificing the customer because of these processes that we have. And that's why it's important for even the Saccos. We have to think as we go to the future, we must find a way of adding that layer. Because neobanking and digital banking is not about withdrawal and deposits. It's that service layer that we are adding on top. And if we have to get there, we must work hard and we must collaborate to ensure that, yes, we build our tech, but we also give you a layer where you can actually be agile and serve the customers better. In addition to that, I would say when it comes to owning the customer, it's all about the value. I normally say that I buy my electricity tokens on the 5th of the month. If I'm using that Sacco app, using my FOSA account, if I don't buy 1 month, how many Saccos will actually note and probably reach out to me, remind me, or even advance a loan in case I'm in a state where I need to be helped? Very few Saccos do that. So if you actually get into a space and provide the value, definitely you own the customer. And you guys have an advantage over banks. I know because Gay was here talking about tech and banks. My view is we in tech, success comes when there is teamwork. Teamwork comes when there are those social bonds. You guys have the social connections. If you want to spread propaganda, Saccos are a good vehicle for you to do that. I'm a KCB customer. I'm sure there is a KCB customer here. And you don't know me. But I'm a Sacco member, Safaricom Sacco. And I know another Safaricom Sacco member here. So we don't have to argue about who owns the customer. It's you. You already own the customer. What you need to do is add that layer. Use that data that you have to actually create personalized. You do the right targeting, and we'll see the business grow. And don't forget to build the tech on that side. So the other thing on CX, if you dial star that shortcode that you dial, because I know most of you use USSD services, how many of you know whether yesterday the response was in 1 second and today we are doing 2 seconds? So you cannot manage what you don't monitor. So you have to engage the customer. If you're not doing any NPS campaigns, CSATs or customer satisfaction campaigns, you don't know what problems you're going through. And you must do that. And on your digital applications, if that OTP doesn't come, your product is dead. So you must have very proactive things so that in case anything goes down, you must know it before the customer I always give up in transacting, not in the first minute, maybe in 5 minutes. I'll do the first attempt, it doesn't work. I try again in 10 minutes. If it doesn't work, you give up. But if you monitor and you're able to detect those things in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, then the customers will always be happy. And you'll keep owning them and you'll grow your business. So in my view, we have to collaborate. We have to ensure that we also get tech guys in your organizations. If you're running tech platforms and you don't know what an API is, we have to work together. And I've seen the computer learning center guys are here. My passion is I want to become a teacher, worked in the telecommunications and served the banks in this region for a number of years, and I want to share. So we must work together so that my old elder here, my elder here who is seated watching me, we need to have conversations so that you also know what APIs are, because we can't talk about NeoBanking, digital banking without taking that challenge. Thank you.
Interesting that you'd like to become a teacher, but I think the fitting title will be a tech evangelist because you're putting it so well for all of us here. And I like the way you introduced the bit on the service layer. It's something that for so many years, for us who've been in the fintech industry, I've been trying to actually sort of have a conversation with commercial banks and Saccos about. And I'd like a view from the practitioners and from Cynthia on this, because there's always been a debate. One of the things that if you speak to banks and Saccos, there are two things that they will never give you. They will tell you, don't touch these two things. One, don't touch my deposits. And number two, don't touch my customer data. So they're very protective over this. And we all know that if we are to innovate at the service layer, it means you have to interact with these things. And then secondly, there is the bit of ownership. Who owns the IP? Who owns the customer? There's always that, back and forth. So Henry, tell us, what's been your experience? Do you really care about who owns the customer? Do you really care about who owns the data? Is it about only innovation and revenue share? I mean, what's your view? And probably Karaoke can come in and then Cynthia can tell us from a partnership point of view, how would you handle it?
Thank you. Sorry. So from the Sacco perspective, actually, if you talk to a typical member, they'll tell you they own that Sacco. They own you. So a member will directly tell you, we own that Sacco. It's our Sacco. So by and by, we own the organization, because typically we are also members of the same Sacco. So we own that. So anytime we want to build something, you look at it from a member perspective. I, as a member, first, that is the only way we can do something that is magical. Without looking at it from that end, then you'll build something that probably no one is going to use. So are you going to use it yourself as a member? Yeah. If you're going to use it, then it makes sense to build it for these other members who we actually own as a group and on the Sacco. And the member here is actually very demanding, as I said, very demanding for this technology. And sometimes, because they own this Sacco, they propose things that they want. And sometimes you just need to give these features that they need as soon. I like the statement that Kamochu put, that sometimes the service providers do not give us a platform to plug in what we want to. And this comes as change requests. And in as much as these members are demanding, we want to give these services as soon, but then when you give it as a change request for a simple tweak on a feature, reducing a step, for example, and you come up with a change request, so sometimes it becomes a hindrance. But then again, we own the organization as the members, in as much as we work in the same organization. So you look at it from that perspective, you are going to build something that is going to last, that is going to make sense or bring value to the member. Thank you.
Karaoke?
Let me try to get to this question of who owns the data, who owns the services that they run the Saccos. I will start with the data. That data is owned by the Sacco. And my advice to my colleagues in the Sacco sector is try as much as you can to own that data and guard it as much as you can. One, because of the Data Protection Act that is coming now. Because if a vendor gets, or the partners you were using, Akina Kwara, Akina Kamonji's company that we are using, if they go and get that data and you didn't give them that data properly and it is misused, then the person to be responsible will be the SACCO. So to me, that bit is important. Number two, if then you know the importance of data, and we have seen what data can do, because going forward, we are not going to make decisions by whims, you know. They will not be political decisions like, I will bring a branch near my hometown because I am the CEO or I'm the chairman. It should be informed by data. The issue of new products or what the members want will be because of data. So that is how valuable that data needs to be. Number two is because from time to time, if you realize that a particular partner or a vendor is not able to deliver, like give you the service you expect, then you have to change. If you change and the partner owned the data, you know, you'll be in a dilemma of how do you get that data back. Number two, I want to say, I wish we could do what, for example, Safaricom has done. You know, they took the data from us, and now that data is a lot of value to them. When, for example, they use it to decide how much loan do you qualify or insure it. Other banks are using the same, and they are paying Safaricom for that. And you see, that is where our SACCOs we need to get to. Because you see the beauty with being a SACCO member, or, you know, SACCO being owned by members. Members are a bit reluctant to really look at you commercially. There is no member who will come and tell you, you have my data and you are using it, you need to pay me for it. Because they feel that they have put sweat on that well-being of the SACCO. So let's use that opportunity to also grow like Safaricom has grown as SACCOs, using the data. The other thing my colleague has said is, Henry, that by virtue that, for example, I work for a SACCO, I go into the length of owning that SACCO also. So even when you are thinking of doing a fraud, you are, you know, it's like stealing from yourself. So rarely do you find this insider jobs happening to SACCOs, but you can hear that in banks, they happen a lot. You know, a teller will set up a customer. Rarely do you find a SACCO person setting up a member to be robbed outside the SACCO like it will happen for the banks. I'm not trying to, you know, badmouth the banks, but it is what I'm saying, that well-being, that ownership, that setup that the SACCOs have, we need to make due use of it much more than we are doing.
Thank you, Karaoke. I think as you respond to that as well quickly, and as we wrap up as well, because I can see Ian is breathing down our throats. Also speak to the issue of regulation. We always say innovation precedes policy. So as much as we are trying to do interesting, fun stuff, we're trying to collaborate. How do you make sure that we're actually on the right side of regulation as we do that? So kindly, as you respond to the issue of collaboration, kindly also speak to the issue of regulation, and then Henry will do that as well, and then we'll wrap up with Kamocho.
Yeah, on protectiveness and maybe hesitance to share different parts of either data or deposits.
Sorry, and IP as well. We haven't spoken IP
yes,
bit as well.
Yeah, so we've taken an approach, and most startups succeed by taking an approach of, you could call it like the freemium model. You try a little bit first, earn the trust, and then iterate. You don't necessarily have to, in the first interaction, get every possible access to every possible part of the business, because that's also not how partnerships develop. So we've seen things as, you know, launching a new feature with just a small group of members first, see how they respond to it. give the assurance that the Sacco, but as well the member, has a say and a view in how things develop. Because once you have, the proof is in the pudding. If you launch with a small group and it really works, then the Sacco is actually the one who says, hey, how quickly can we roll this out? But if you go with an approach of, we have to implement everything at once now, even if the Sacco believes in it, the risk, they might just say the risk is not worth it, right? So that's how we've approached when it comes to protectiveness and so on. And as far as who owns the customer, I think I can't say it better than my colleague here, in terms of the member owns the Sacco, right? And so everything needs to center around that. The Sacco needs to know the member owns that institution, and then when partnering, whether we're speaking with Saccos or members, anything that has a great outcome for the member will have a great outcome for the Sacco. And everything that has a great outcome for the Sacco has a great outcome for the member. And with regards to regulation, I think we are fortunate to be in an environment that has an enabling regulatory space. If you have an over-enthusiastic regulatory environment, then there's no chance to discover what is possible. And I think we've seen proof that there's a willingness to try, but there's also a very strict view on, hey, we can't destabilize the financial sector, right? So I do think that we're operating in a space that is enabling. And so engagement, share your ideas, say, hey, we're thinking about this crazy idea. What do you guys think? And because there's already some trust built in this market, because there's proof, I would say that fintechs should not fear that as an essence. But at the same time, regulation typically follows innovation, not the other way around.
Henry, 1 minute.
Thank you. Ian is walking around. So in terms of regulation, I think it's an enabling environment that you have. Sastra, for deposit-taking circles like us, is very welcoming. When you want to do something, you have a discussion one-on-one, and they are actually very supportive. And that is why circles are probably moving to the technology space, because of some of the regulations that are being put. And especially now they have looked at the risk, the circle space, and issues like doing systems audit in terms of annual basis. Those are some of the things that are helping circles navigate the murky waters of the financial digital space. Thank you.
Kamoju, as we wrap up.
Yeah, I think it's, even in terms of regulations, I have seen I think I read some times back there was a circle that wanted to acquire or partner with a bank so that they can offer more services. You might find that you're quite limited, but in my view, I think partnerships would help, especially if you're navigating an area where you don't have the right or you're not allowed to do certain things. You can partner with someone who can do that. And I think at the end of the day, for me, as I conclude, is we just have to ensure that we partner so that those digital products that you have, we can ensure that they work. If they work, then you can add value on top. But most importantly, also ensure that you listen to the customer. I know my Sacco has not engaged me anytime to ask me whether I'm okay. So I think those are some of the things. And you can do a basic survey. If this is something that you would like to deal with, I think these are things that we can assist as tech partners.
Right, I'm not sure if there's anybody here from Safaricom Sacco, clearly. He has never been called since he started depositing. But
and even
thank
banks,
you.
not Saccos only.
Yeah, okay. I think it's very clear that, compliance is not an option. Collaboration is the way to go. Yes. Karaoke, Cynthia, Henry, and Kamochu, thank you very much for your time and your contributions. Thank you, everybody, for your patience and for listening to us. Let's have the conversation going on.